Hey everybody, Mike with Games Play Badly, and today on Session 0 I have Matt and Nathan. They're with a podcast called the Advanced Age Roleplaying Podcast. They've been playing together for over 40 years, and some of their friends who they're gaming with as well are friends they met in school. And they actually have a story that is ending this week, which is based in a game called Twilight 2000. It was a game that was developed back in the 80s that's been rebooted and kickstarted and was recently re-released. And it is post-apocalyptic world. It's not shiny vampires or anything like that. And now they have another storyline dropping next week, which is in D&D 5e. So that should be really fun. It is actually based on the premise that the party is a rock band. I can't wait to listen to it. As usual, I have a Gemmed Firefly shirt on. This is my Dungeons and Unicorns. Love this shirt. It's fantastic. If you want a shirt like this, go to gemfirefly.com. Shop around, grab all you can. You'll sleep in them. They're so soft. They're awesome. And at checkout, put in Badly15, BADLY 15 at checkout for 15% off your order. If you like our videos and you want to see more, give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button, which is over here. Yep, right there. Click that and you'll be subscribed to our channel. Doesn't cost you anything. Helps me, and that way you know what we're doing. I can't wait to hear more about their podcast. That interview starts now. Hey guys, how are you?
Awesome. How are you?
Very good. Thanks, Matt and Nate, for being on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's great to be here finally.
Yeah, we've been talking back and forth. Scheduling's not been a huge issue, but today we had to delay it a little bit because, real paying jobs, I have to kind of do that stuff first. Yeah. But you have a podcast which appeals to me as an older gentleman. And the name of your podcast is?
The Advanced Age Role-Playing Gamers Podcast.
And the reason I didn't say that is because I can barely pronounce my own name sometimes. So I figured I'd have you do it first.
So first funny story, probably the entire way through our first season, I was announcing the podcast and I could not get the name of our podcast right, probably for like 10 episodes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, no problem here. Yeah, I had to read it eventually.
And for those youngsters out there who don't really know the hook on that, go look it up. When you hit age 50, they come looking for you.
That's right.
So why don't you tell me? I know that this is your first series of podcasts, correct?
Yeah, this is our first. We started in April 1st. We thought that was a good day for us to start.
That's when we launched.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And now you're kind of coming to the end of your first kind of story arc, and there's a new one coming as well.
This is kind of our third. We actually initially launched a full season of Alien RPG on audio only. 9 episodes of that. It was meant to be our test episodes because we were just doing everything we could do wrong and poorly for the recording. So we did our best. So I was, of course, relearning editing at the time too. So the first few episodes are pretty wonky, but the story is amazing. And then so in April, we launched those 9 episodes all at once, and we started our Twilight 2000 arc using the 4th edition, the alpha version of the 4th edition Twilight 2000 rules from Free League Publishing. Mm-hmm. So it's part of the Year Zero engine, and we started and played most of the games from then until I think July. Right? I think it's July is when we stopped recording. And we've been, we just released the last episode last week.
Yeah, I watched. I listened to a little bit of that. I actually listened because you not only is it a podcast, but you also have a YouTube channel associated with it as well.
Yep.
So find your medium, and folks, you can either listen or watch or do both. So
You see
actually,
our
I guess you
beautiful
would do
faces on
both.
YouTube.
Yeah.
So now
Most of our faces.
What's
Yeah,
that?
well, most of our faces.
Yeah,
Most of our
right,
faces.
right. What's interesting about this, what I find interesting about this last bit is Twilight 2000. So Twilight 2000 is a game that came out in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a revival and did a Kickstarter not too long ago, and they came out with the 4th edition. So obviously there was a 2nd, 3rd edition as well. But yeah, it looks really cool, and it's so funny. It's okay, and also for some of our viewers, it's not the Vampire Twilight, so it's it's a completely different.
Vampires.
Nobody sparkles.
No, people radiate, but that's about it. So
Yeah, they glow.
so it's a post-apocalyptic world, and it's
Mhm.
pretty gnarly. Why don't you go
Mhm.
ahead and describe some of that for me?
It was originally written back in the 80s, as we a lot of us of our advanced age, we kind of grew up in the Cold War,
Mhm.
and it was kind of a what if the Cold War went hot and actually became a war. And I think it was pretty interesting that Free League chose to revive this, because it's been pretty popular. It's had several different revisions over the years, and yeah, it's a pretty grim world. It focuses a lot on survival. So some folks play it sort of as a military simulation. You can get really heavy into it if you're like big into, combat and tactics. And I think we approached it more from a personal level of a group of sort of disparate people. And it was a mix of civilian characters and military. We thought that just seemed really interesting, because we always forget there's all these people that get caught up in war, right? And so, at least for me, it played out as a character as a much more personal experience of survival, not so much like like a war game. Yeah, it's a small group of sort of strangers, or some people who knew each other. The characters kind of thrust together in this harsh world, and you really spend a lot of time just trying to figure out where your next meal is going to come from. What are you going to do? How are you going to be safe? Everything is dangerous. And so it is a really good setting for that kind of open world play, because that's another thing too, is they don't do it where it's like, here's a dungeon module and you go to room 1 and you fight the orc, and you go to room 2. This is a map, right? And then Nathan, as our game master, kind of has some story elements, but it's just, here's Poland, survive. And so that can be that puts a lot of stress. We had a lot of episodes where we talk about what do we do, where do we go. So it's a very cool setting, very good mechanics, I think, actually, for the game system too.
Yeah, it's a hex crawl, and I like Matt said, I just had a couple of story elements to kind of dangle in front of them and see which way they wanted to go. And the nice thing is we only record like 2 hours at a time, edit that down. So basically, I didn't really have to prep too much, because there's really only so far they go in that 2 hours.
Right.
So yeah, it was really nice as a game master, just letting them kind of decide the fate, or the risks they wanted to take, and it turned out really, really well. Like some things that I didn't think they were gonna get to see, because they're kind of going in the opposite direction. They ended up falling into, it's a really neat system. I can definitely get behind. People that are into that survival type of game. It's a good match for that.
Well, I mean, and from what I remember, back in the original game, it was very much a session zero process to kind of generate your character. So you're going through like a character, or like a career tree, and trying to kind of develop your character. But it was only a few people could do it at a time, and typically there weren't multiple books around for people to do it, and you also need to focus on what they were doing. So this version actually comes with kind of templates, right?
Yeah. So there's templates. So you can do the template character creation, where you can play kid or an operator, or soldier, and they have all these templates. But we went with the life path, so they kept that. So life path is where you you roll dice and you kind of decide, you make decisions after every round, and you kind of build your character. So your concept going into it doesn't always match what you end up with at the end of it. It's not like where you die in character creation like the old Traveler, but you can end up with a wildly different character. But at the end, you generally have a pretty interesting background, and I think it worked out really well for us. We recorded our session 0 and released that probably about a month and a half ago, and that got a ton of views. Like it really, people were really hungry to watch this whole session 0, and it was a lot of fun. It's like a meta game within itself, the whole life path creation.
I agree. I think, I've had very few. Back in the day, we didn't, or at least for me, there really wasn't a session 0. You weren't sitting there collaboratively building anything. You just kind of scribbled on your paper and you said, "Here I am," and you got introduced at an inn, and you kind of went and did your thing. Session 0s are really not only a collaborative story writing way of doing things, but it's also a safety mechanism for now, where we discuss what people don't want to see, what people don't feel comfortable with, before we start the game, so that way we don't step on each other's toes, when we're playing or offend anybody. But I've had some amazing session 0s, and I'm going to tell you that with a good group, that really sets you off to be successful. It sets off a really good foundation for role play and collaboration. So I love that.
With us, since most of us have been playing together for 30 plus years, there's not a whole lot of safety concerns, but definitely if you're playing with with a fresh group, that's definitely something you gotta take into account.
Yeah, I think as you guys had alluded to through your website and kind of through us talking, as well as the evolution of gaming during the pandemic. So I think a lot of us have joined groups from around the world at this point. I mean, I know I have people I play with from all over the country, and I play with people kind of on different continents at this point. And so that session 0 has evolved to address those needs as well. So, but yeah. So now you mentioned you've been playing together for a long time. What is your earliest recollection, and what game were you playing together?
Matt, do you remember?
So I think our first games together. So Nathan and I have known each other since high school. So a very long time. And but I think we actually didn't really start gaming until college.
No,
we?
So
yeah, let me see. This is old people memory, right?
Yeah. No, we had a game in. I think we were playing like they let us play on the stage behind the curtain, and I remember Lee was running us through something. An old friend we also went to high school with, and I remember like we didn't say we fed our horses, so our horses died.
That's Lee.
That's the kind of DM.
Yeah.
So that's my earliest recollection of the first game we played with Matt. But then we played in college together too.
I think college is where it really clicked. Yeah. We actually started or refurbished the gaming society at our community college, and we had a lot of people. Yeah. In fact, most of the people that we're still playing with today are it's from that group. It's a mix.
Yeah, there's probably, and we get together like once a year. We invite probably 15 people, and maybe 10 show up. So if we could probably have like 2 different podcasts with our gaming group that's from college. So
yeah,
well, that's fun. Yeah, I mean, the guys that I played with when I started growing up, I don't really, we're not really playing together right now. We're trying to arrange something because, again, I was like 13, 14. No, I was younger than that. No, I was 10 when we started playing, and we had an older cousin of someone who introduced us to D&D and things like that. So it was pretty epic. Then we got into things like Car Wars and BattleTech and Warhammer and all those things a 10-year-old can't afford to play.
That's right.
So now why don't you tell me more about your cast of characters?
All right, so we've got quite a cast of characters that help us out on the show, that partner with us. So I guess the ones I've known the longest is Sean. Sean was also at the community college while I was there, and Sean, let's see, I'm trying to think of, we have Tyr, right? And now Tyr knows, it's all kind of a web, right? So Sean knows Tyr through, I believe, the SCA, the Society of Creative Anachronisms. So they go out or at least they used to do more. They'd go out and whack each other with sticks and, all that stuff. So they were really into it. And so through them, I met Tyr. And then I think Tyr is the link to our third and fourth persons, Chris and Kupo. Yep. And so that's sort of how they, in fact, Nathan and I don't think I really met Chris and Tony, until we started doing this. Yeah. And before we did the podcast, probably the year leading up to when the podcast started, Nathan was running a Tuesday night Dungeons and Dragons game. And that's how I started playing with the rest of the folks who ended up were like, hey, why don't we just make this a podcast, start recording this.
Yeah, and we should mention Malcolm too, because Malcolm started with us in the Alien game and had to drop off due to real life stuff, and he started back up with us again for the kind of second half of this game that we're launching next week. And he's from the community college also.
He's from the community college.
Nice.
So it's and having Tyr and Tony and Chris have been gaming together a long time, right, like the rest of us. So it's kind of like two groups kind of merged together of people that have been playing together a long time, and we just mesh like perfectly, and we get each other's sense of humor, and I spend probably way too many hours editing these things, and I'm like having a good time the whole time listening to all the dumb jokes that we make.
Those group dynamics are super important, and I've been in groups where I didn't really dig some of the people that we were playing with, and it made it very difficult as a player, and if you were a DM, it made it even worse. But I mean, finding that chemistry is really important, especially when you're doing something that you're trying to produce for other people to listen to or watch.
And the technology's come a long way too. I think years ago we had a friend who moved away, and we tried to do like Malcolm. One of these. Well, Malcolm, Greg, and Greg. We tried to do some of these virtual tabletops years ago, and they were just, I think, a lot more clunky. We couldn't do what we're doing now without the virtual. The cast, we live pretty far away from each other, and so this has really been, I think the pandemic pushed a lot of technology and a lot of focus on, being able to gather socially, virtually. And we've really, as gamers, have benefited. I mean, the VTTs are better. A lot of the tools are better. It's, it's kind of like perfect storm of, if you're looking for a silver lining for the pandemic, for us, we've really been able to game more, get together more. So
feel like human beings,
Yeah.
Your next story arc is that already basically been filmed and it's just waiting to dry? Because that starts starts next week.
Next
right?
Tuesday, yeah. It's already what day is that? So I guess the 14th.
It'll be the 14th, yeah.
So yeah, we've shot 14 episodes. I've got episode 1 on the side of the monitor that I'm adding sound effects and music to right now. It's done, finished editing during work today. So I'm just working on the sound effects stuff and the music, and then it'll be ready to go.
Now, is all this is this still Twilight 2000?
No. Oh, sorry.
Well, it's your story. So I did Twilight 2000. So Matt's got this new adventure. He's running this one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So we took a hard left turn. We decided to go with a sort of a palate cleanser. So we're back to good old Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. And what's kind of funny with it is it's actually a game that I ran for a friend and his family during the pandemic. And he'd been running, and I was like, well, hey, I'd like to learn how to use this virtual tabletop. And so I kind of like learned how to use one, and I built this kind of short little adventure. It's kind of supposed to be a scary adventure. And it was good. So I had it all packaged up. So I said, hey, I've got some content. And sure enough, it was supposed to be sort of D&D horror. Very quickly, they came back to me and said, no, we're going to be a band. we're going to be a sort of fantasy metal band on tour. And I knew right there that any of my plans for a serious game were sort of just not going to happen. So it is picture, your favorite or your most hated 80s heavy metal band dropped into like the Middle Earth, and they're going around doing all the bad behavior and the sort of, outlandish personalities and big hair and makeup. Rooms. Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of, and
all the worst qualities that you expect from a band.
I have to say out front, podcast is not safe for children. So
no, this is not it's not
a children's podcast.
Barely safe for adults, I would say.
Safe for adults. And I would say extra for this particular story. I think some of our other ones, we might say bad words or something like that. This one, because the characters are sort of representing not typical heroes. These are sort of somewhat non-likable people because of their excesses and their behaviors. This one's definitely, you don't want to have this on in the car with the kids or anything like that. No, that's not.
Oh my God, that'd be a shocker, wouldn't it?
You have a lot of explaining to do.
Yeah, they grow up real quick.
Yeah.
But I can only imagine somebody swerving off the road trying to turn it off.
Yeah, so we've definitely embraced, and about almost when we were done with this sort of adventure, the players said, hey, we really like this. We're really digging the characters. Can you do another? So I'm like, sure. So they go and scramble quickly and try to write another chapter. So that's what we're working on right now. But we've really embraced it. It's definitely trying to be funny, trying to use 80s, old catchphrases or work lyrics or band. So like one of the characters is, the high priest Judas. So Judas, so we're trying to work in some very poorly, but we are trying to work in as many. Nathan had a really good one this last week. He was able to. What were you working in? Sweet Child of Mine?
So your one of your NPCs called our halfling a sweet child, and I said sweet child of mine.
So yes, lots of puns.
Stupid puns.
But it's been a lot of fun. We really so even though we do experiment with a lot of other game systems, we all kind of started with D&D, and I think we all really like sort of the flexibility and fun that we get with D&D 5th edition. So it's nice.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I haven't played anything but D&D in years. Not because I don't want to, it's just because that's what everybody wants to play. I used to fall back on all the Palladium systems, whether it was Ninjas and Super Spies or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or we played DC Heroes or whatever. Yeah. Absolutely. Beyond the Supernatural. Yeah. I mean, those were all our things. I mean, was it Marvel superheroes? Do you remember? Yep. Do you ever play that? On the back of the rule book, it had that like graph. Yeah, which was your power graph. Right. That was awesome too. So I just don't have any of those games anymore.
I spend way too much money on Kickstarters.
Me too.
I love backing this stuff. This stuff's great. I love independent games, and most of the podcasts are D&D also, and that's kind of one of the things. So this whole podcast thing was Matt's idea, and like I have to thank him for this, because it was really such a great idea, and I've had so much fun playing with the audio stuff after such a long break. And but we didn't want to start with a D&D, because we kind of get lost in the noise, because there's a billion D&D actual play podcasts. So so Free League makes great systems. I was really into I was reading Alien. I wanted to run that, and so we ran one session with Alien before the podcast, and really partway through is when Matt really said, "Hey, let's see if we can make this happen." And then I ran another Alien game, and we tried to record that, and with mixed success, but tons of fun. And then we said, okay, we're going to launch with Twilight 2000 with these alpha rules and see what happens. And I think it actually turned out pretty well for a podcast that's not, focusing on non-super mainstream
Sure.
games. There's definitely some hunger for it, as people are very nostalgic about Twilight 2000. People love free league games, so and all the communities on Twitter and on Facebook and Reddit are super welcoming and supportive. So I think by starting with Twilight 2000, we did a good choice, made a great choice. And D&D's, we're having a lot of fun with that, but I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what we do next.
We kind of mix it up. We have so we do our actual play. We've done some interviews, and we also do how-tos. So I've done some like rules how-tos with Twilight 2000, and Nathan does technical videos on recording and editing. So we try to mix it up a little bit, because we kind of see it as like it's a community. So we want to have fun and play our games and share them, but we also wanted to discuss, what we've taken away from the rules and help people who are trying to learn the system. And then, like I said, Nathan's done a ton of work and learned a ton of stuff about editing and all these special effects. Why not pass that on and share that with other creators? I mean, we're all sort of, in this together. So
I agree. Yeah, that's I thought about doing videos about setting up the studio and shooting video and editing and things like that. I just don't think that I'm particularly good at it. So I don't necessarily want to start people on bad behavior. So I just kind of keep all my stuff to myself.
Yeah. So I looked at it as like I am not the end all be all of proper editing technique, but if you look at I look at a lot of the forums for like podcast editing and stuff like that, and you see a lot of the same questions over and over and over again. So that's kind of my idea is like, maybe I can show a couple of tips that will make things easier and quicker for people, because podcast editing for an actual play, usually a podcast is like one or two people. That's not a big deal. When you got like 6 people and you're trying to do music too and sound effects and you're recording online where that has tons of issues, it's a kind of an enormous beast. So if I have a couple of things on there that hopefully will help people kind of skip past some of the pain of recording and editing stuff.
And that's all on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, I just have two videos, but I use this one, and it's really around this one DAW workstation called Reaper. Super powerful, really cheap, and I think it's great. It's I learned back in school in 95, 96, like Pro Tools and stuff like that. But that's that's a subscription service now, and if you're like paying $20 a month to use that. So
yeah, I mean, I edit all my videos. All these videos for you guys who are watching and you guys here are all done through Shotcut. So it's a free open source program. It works fairly well. It has its drawbacks. It's not as fancy, but it's free, and it works pretty well. My videos could probably be awesome if I was better, but I mean, they're still pretty damn good, I think.
Well, I think, I've watched a few of the videos. So I'll think of YouTube, like if I want to fix something in the house, right? And I can find any fix I can think of. Someone's done a video. Yeah. It may not be professional, right? It may not be the best shot quality, but it's the information that we're looking for. Right. So I know, like, I use a different tool for Nathan still tweaks them, but I use a different tool to put together some of the tutorials. I try, but I know they're not professional. But if I can get the information across and people can learn from it, I just kind of had to give myself a pass and say, look, Matt, you're not going to be able to create some fancy, product, but if you can, if you can create an informative product, I'll take that as a win.
I appreciate you guys coming on. I do a little thing with my guests, and it's called a lightning round. It is hard hitting. I'm really diving in. I want to grab that emotion and I want to shake it out of you. I want tears at the end of this. Okay.
All right, we'll try.
Ready?
Deal.
Okay. So there's 5 questions. One of them is, what is your favorite D&D monster?
Ooh, Beholder.
Intellect Devourer.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Bean.
Cake or pie?
A cake.
Pie.
Uh-oh. There's a rift.
Yeah.
The group's going to completely fall apart over this. There's a rift forming. You saw it here first, folks. Right. Storm out. Table flip. Spring or fall?
Fall.
Ooh, fall, but it's a close one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I love fall, my favorite season, but spring is I really love because that's when I do a lot of my everything turns green again. I do my planting.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice.
Yeah, if you're a gardener, spring is definitely awesome. If you're not, fall is probably better. Hamburger or a hot dog?
Hamburger.
Hamburger.
So the last question is, out of all the games that you've played, what do you feel is more represents your game style?
It's going to sound really vanilla. I'd say I like Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. I think I like it because it's forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Like my character I play in Nathan's game is just kind of like chaotic neutral fighter who's just kind of like not super smart, gets in trouble all the time. But the game system is forgiving that if I want to just run and leap and jump on the back of some giant monster, I'm not going to die in a hit. I'm not going to worry about that. So I think that's been, that's still probably my favorite. I've enjoyed a lot of other game systems. The free league systems, I really like their stress mechanic. I like the fact that in a free league game like Aliens, your character starts out the best it's going to be. And it only goes down from there. Yeah, and that's a completely different way than you think of like D&D, where like I'm always getting better. And granted, those systems do have experience points and ways that you can build up your character, but most of the games we've played are very contained, and so it is just sort of a descent into, madness, and So, yeah, those are a couple of my favorite things right now.
I have definitely a lot of nostalgia for D&D, but I have system ADD. I just want to try everything, and but I mean my style is definitely my style is chaotic neutral. When you say
that clears things up.
I would say Nathan is chaotic neutral.
You could say that. I don't know. But and we kind of interview each other on our channel too, but I like games where there's some risk involved, and that's the thing that I'm missing in D&D is I never feel there's any risk. And if you listen to how when this new game we start up, my character acts like there's no risk at all to any of the combat, and I'm kind of forcing Matt to give me consequences for my actions, and that may help Matt understand why I do what I do. But it's so I like games like Twilight 2000 and Alien and some of these other ones where okay, maybe you will start to go a little mad, or maybe you'll lose a limb and stuff like that, because you think about all the hero movies and things like that we watch. The point where the heroes become interesting is when they've lost their powers, they lose an eye, Captain America loses a shield, loses a relative. That that trial, that suffering, the pain, and those are things that make a hero a hero. It's not these superpowers and the fact they can do 20 points of damage in one hit. That's not heroic stuff. It's just like, how do you overcome all these things that beating you down?
Right.
So to me, that's a lot more interesting than being, having a high AC or being able to do tons of damage. So.
Yeah, I completely agree. Everything you just said, I completely agree with. So 2 different play styles, 2 different thought processes, but yeah, I agree with both of you. So it has been an absolute pleasure having both of you on. I cannot wait to hear the new arc that is coming out next. It's not really an arc, it's a whole separate game now. So and I can't wait to hear that, which drops next Tuesday, you said?
Yep, Tuesday the 14th.
I can't wait to hear it. The heavy metal aspect of it just makes me giggle with glee.
Us too.
yeah.
And I wish you guys all the best. And I can't wait to hear what else you guys produce. I think it's fabulous. I love the fact that you guys are all friends, and some of you have known each other for as long as I've known my friends, and still playing together and still enjoying each other's company. And even during a pandemic, that still has survived. So congratulations for that, and great work so far.
Thank you. That's really the best part. And thanks for having us on here. Love to come back anytime you'd have us. So
absolutely. We could make this a regular thing. We could do an old timers D&D something. We sit here and prattle on about how these young whippersnappers don't know how to. Nope, that doesn't go over very well. Don't do that.
I used to roll my dice uphill both ways.
Yeah, right.
Get out of my dungeon.
That's right.
Right, exactly. All right, guys, we will talk soon. Thank you very much, and best of luck.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.